In the film Frank, John meets up with the titular character, a musician with a papier-mâché mask that he wears at all times over his head. John joins Frank's band, and after a while, he begins uploading the recording sessions to Twitter and YouTube, exploding their popularity and getting them invited to South by Southwest. After a series of misadventures, Frank loses the mask and has a nervous breakdown, and is coaxed back into reality by John and his bandmates. The unusual relationship between performer and audience is in the DNA of this film. The audience doesn't really know Frank, exacerbated by the fact that nobody really knows Frank, hidden under his mask. So, once, someone went into my comment section and made some comments that I thought were a bit too personal. The details I can't remember because I read dozens of comments every day. So I told the commenter that we are complete strangers, and maybe that was not appropriate. After some back and forth, he said that I was not a stranger to him, and that because he watched my show, he knew me. This was not only wrong, but disturbing to me as someone who values their privacy. The idea that he knew me on a personal level, or even that he knew me at all, because he subscribed to my YouTube channel. He thought that since he knew things about me, that was more or less the same as knowing me. But I am a stranger. I'm just a familiar stranger. Stanley Milgram coined this term in his 1972 paper, The Familiar Stranger, an Aspect of Urban Anonymity. Milgram and his students conducted a little experiment. His students took photographs of people waiting at railway stations during their morning commute. A week after taking the pictures, the students went to the same spot, distributed the photographs, and asked everyone to label them with anyone they recognized or to whom they had spoken. The average commuter claimed to recognize 4 individuals who they had never spoken to, compared to the 1.5 individuals on average with whom they had conversed. Milgram thought this might have something to do with what the commuters thought of those strangers. Commuters noted that they imagined what kinds of lives familiar strangers led and what kinds of jobs they held. Sometimes these fantasies are more fulfilling and therefore more memorable than cruel reality, which is often disappointing. Milgram called these fantasy relationships with familiar strangers, but Milgram's study existed long before the advent of YouTube, 24-hour celebrity news, etc. These days, this is more commonly called a parasocial relationship. Chris Rojek, author of Presumed Intimacy, defined it thusly. This is a concept with more powerful emotional implications for the conventional senses of social responsibility and reciprocity than Milgram's concept of familiar strangers. It refers to relationships of presumed intimacy between media figures and network spectators. Basically, it's a mostly one-sided relationship in which an audience believes they know the performer. Frank's fans don't really know him, they literally can't, he wears a mask and conceals his identity, but they get a sense of who he is and fantasize about what he's really like, and this fantasy can be very powerful. Let's go back to the YouTuber who thought he knew me because he subscribed to my channel. In addition to this being obviously wrong, because watching a person through their YouTube channel does not mean you know that person, it's wrong because you aren't actually watching that person. You're watching the version of that person that person wants to present, either for marketing purposes or to protect their mental health. The latter is true of me. Nothing is uploaded unless it's what the YouTuber wants their audience to see. Even people who claim that their channel is just this completely unfiltered version of themselves, and that's the appeal, well, they aren't being truthful. Everything is edited and presented in the best possible way. This does not necessarily mean that the performer is being a completely different character, or that the performance is a lie or dishonest, but it does mean that the personality is presenting a curated version of who they are. Frank reveals little of himself every time he sings a song or makes a public appearance, whether he wants to or not. In a sense, he's not being fake, but Frank is also not made of paper mache, and Frank intentionally does not reveal much about himself to others, and even less to his audience. I may seem like I'm revealing more of myself than Frank because I'm showing my face today, but this is still a curated version of myself. Everything I'm saying, I'm reading from a script that's right behind a camera. I'm trying really hard not to make it obvious, but that is definitely what I'm doing. The clothes I'm wearing were chosen to present the version of myself I'm comfortable showing. I don't just walk around my apartment wearing a suit jacket. I don't do that. Even live streams that show that YouTuber without much of a safety net is still only that YouTuber as a YouTuber. That's not their whole life. You're just seeing this slice of their life that they have decided will be online, like I do. Now you might say that this is all true of more meaningful relationships. People code switch and perform a different version of themselves for different people. Nobody is a mind reader, which means nobody actually knows the real you. But a parasocial relationship differs greatly from this due to the balance of the relationship. Your genuine friendships, your co-equal friendships, have an intimacy that cannot be found in a parasocial relationship. A parasocial relationship, on the other hand, well, it's not one way. That's not entirely accurate. I mean, I read all the comments, emails, messages, for example. So maybe one way is wrong. Maybe unbalanced is more accurate. The scales are tilted. And this makes me feel phony sometimes. I'm not trying to make the case that parasocial relationship equals bad, because that's a little reductive. My interactions with my audience range from completely positive and wholesome to people calling for my suicide all the time. It's difficult for YouTubers to talk about this because no matter how obvious all of this is and how reasonable this may seem, that, parasocial relationships are not friendships, some people become upset when they hear this. Or they use this as an excuse to attack the person, saying, "You don't care about your fans," as a response. The only reason this is a response is because of parasocial relationships. When you go to the supermarket and the cashier is just doing their job, nobody yells, "You don't care about your customers." But there's this presumed intimacy between online personalities and their fans, or real celebrities and their fans. And because of this, it makes the outburst of "you don't care about your fans" somehow seem reasonable, and it makes the idea of the celebrity or the YouTuber just doing their job as this betrayal. I can't even count the number of times people have been upset with me when I say that this is my job, because they want it to be so much more than that. Some people on the receiving end of a parasocial relationship, meaning the people being watched, are more comfortable with this than, say, Frank, who has a nervous breakdown in the third act of the film, or even more comfortable than, say, myself. On the more intimate side of things, some people on the receiving end of a parasocial relationship play up the fact that their audience calls them pet names. Not nicknames, but like intimate pet names like daddy or mommy. And that is their choice. No judgment. But for me, just for me, that kind of intimacy with a stranger is not okay. Even relatively harmless messages like this one do not make me feel good or attractive. No amount of take a compliment replies will make me feel good, because even though I actively discourage this kind of thing, it makes me feel like I'm accidentally manipulating people into liking me and giving me one-way attention that I cannot reciprocate. And it's especially troubling when it's the kind of attention I don't want, that being romantic or sexual. I'm doing this episode in front of a camera for, I think, the first time ever, not counting collaborations, for a reason. And that reason is, this still really isn't me. Or if it is me, it's only a small part of me. The part of me that is okay to be shared. YouTube only presents the perception of authenticity. The artifice still exists, even among slice-of-life vloggers who present a lot of their day-to-day. You might think that because this is my face this time, this is more authentic, or a more authentic look into myself. But it's not. I'm still only presenting a curated version of myself, and I'm reading all of this from a script, and even all the ums and uhs I've said are in the script. And so is this confession. I'm reading it right now. Everything I'm saying right now is true. It's not a lie, but it's also behind a mask of performance. Something can be true, not a lie, and also be a performance. And this seeming contradiction is a lot. The other reason it's difficult for YouTubers to talk about our inherent inauthenticity is because some YouTubers who portray themselves as 100% real, but literally can't be, take offense to this demonstrable fact and don't appreciate people pulling back the curtain because they depend on the presumed intimacy of their channel. And this is not a call out because I'm complicit in this too, whether I want to or not. It's unavoidable. So, guilty. I hope I haven't upset people with this video. I don't have all the answers to this stuff. And a lot of different YouTubers have wildly different takes on this, I've noticed. But this is what it feels like for me. At the end of Frank, he is without his mask, and he sings, and he's happier for it, one assumes. He can be real, or at least as real as possible to his friends, but can he be more than a familiar stranger to his audience, if they don't really know him? Hi everyone, thanks for watching the last 2 weird episodes of Renegade Cut. Next week we'll be back to normal, whatever that is. See you then.